There we are. I think it's working. Well, let's get it taken care of right off the bat. See the top of that head? For all of you that are squeamish, you may want to turn away from the screen. It's not very nice, but that's what a beam will do for you. Beam me up, Scotty. Oh yeah. We had lots of fun the other day. Let me see what I can find here for my links and everything else that is going on here. Oh my gosh, I got so much open here tonight. Okay. Give me a second. This is our live TV as always. My goodness. There we are. D-Live's working. Now I'm just looking for my Twitch feed because it looks like for some reason I'm not seeing it. All right, guys, let me get to my Twitch feed. Welcome everybody in D-Live. This is our second live stream on D-Live, and it looks like the audience is growing by leaps and bounds. Everybody is, of course, welcome. Thank you very much. And I'll have my act together here in just a moment. There it goes. We are going to be talking about Tiberius with relation to Palantir software. And it looks like I lost a whole bunch of the chat room from before. Sorry guys, I just okay. At least you can see and hear me. Let me know in the chat room that everything's working there in Twitch. And we just have some competing live streams going on here, and I'm just trying to keep it sorted out. There it is. Okay, good. Thank you. I found the original one. It's just buried behind another link. Well, we are flying at 40,000 feet on Patch Airlines tonight. I am flying solo. Kathleen is taking care of the chat room, the moderating duties on the ground. We may do a few loop-de-loops tonight, so she's chosen not to participate because she has a squeamish stomach for that kind of stuff, just like some of you may for the top of my poor head here. You know, I've mentioned to many of you in the past that I now volunteer as a firefighter for our small town in New Hampshire and for the adjoining towns. I have 3 helmets that they issued to me. Of course, one was a fire helmet. Another one is a rock climbing helmet. And the other is a wildland fire helmet, which is basically a hard hat. None of those 3 were on my head. When I was working in my barn, I was trying to dodge some wire that I was putting on a gate to the side of the barn, trying not to get myself hooked by the wire. I have one beam in the entire barn that's about 5 feet 5, and I'm 6 foot 2. Do the math. I tried to dodge it. At least I didn't take it in the prefrontal cortex. I probably should wear a hat. What do you think? Should I go get a hat and put a hat on? Would that be easier for everybody? Anyway, that's why we missed on our Tuesday live stream, which we greatly apologize, and we really enjoy our live streams. Let me turn the light down. Maybe that won't show up quite so much. Mr. Wilson says no hat needed. Thank you, Mr. Wilson, for the graphic you sent to me about an hour ago. You are very creative, my friend. He was making fun of my smack to the bald head. I did have a soft hat on. I had a hat on. If I had not had a hat on, In paramedic language, when you peel back the skin, it's called an avulsion, avulsion, avulsion. In other words, a scrape. So, okay, very good, Pamela. I turned the lights off. That's easier for you guys. I was wearing a hat. And if I had not, it would have been a lot worse. But anyway, let's move along. We want to talk about Tiberius. And I'm going to jump right into scripture for this to be able to set this up. Yes, dear? I don't need a hat. Thank you, dear. Anyway, maybe I will. Okay. Now, this hat has an emblem on it. And for the sake of full disclosure, of course, it has paint on it as well. How in the world did I get paint on this? This must be my other hat that I paint in. There we go. Okay, so this I've worn before. This is my wooden boat hat. That is the pointy end of a Viking ship. Now the little white dot is because I got paint on my hat. But that's a Viking ship looking bow or pointy end on. Okay, that has no other meaning, significance. Kathleen and I just appreciate wooden boats, and we subscribe to Wooden Boat magazine. Okay? All right, so there we go. Let us get to our scripture for tonight. That is a lot more interesting. I'd like to jump straight to Mark 12:17. And let's bring that page up here. Mark 12:17, give to Caesar what is Caesar's and to God what is God's. And we'll follow that with Luke 3. In the 15th year of the reign of Tiberius Caesar, while Pontius Pilate was governor of Judea. We'll go through both of those briefly tonight, just to set the stage. Mark 12:17, and Jesus answering them said, render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. And they marveled at him. I'd like to read a very short paragraph from Matthew Henry from BibleHub.com. The enemies of Christ. Now, again, very familiar scriptures presented in the modern context because they were as applicable when they were written and the events that were recorded when they were written as they are today. The enemies of Christ would be thought desirous to know their duty, when really they hoped that whichsoever side he took of the question, they might find occasion to accuse him. Nothing is more likely to ensnare the followers of Christ than bringing them to meddle with disputes about worldly politics. Jesus avoided the snare by referring to the submission they had already made as a nation. And all that heard him marveled at the great wisdom of his answer. Many will praise the words of a sermon who will not be commanded by the doctrines of it. Again, this applies to why Kathleen and I have chosen, and so many of you have agreed with us, not to enter into the division, the divisive discussions of politics, even the U.S. presidential election. Jesus, in the same context, replied regarding politics, and Jesus answering said to them, render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. And they marveled at him. In our Sunday live stream, Kathleen and I were outlining that we are to be looking up. We are to be focused upon Jesus Christ. The leaders of the world are only here for but a short time. Those that are alive and in power when Jesus Christ returns will lose their heads. Therefore, we shouldn't bother. We shouldn't be concerned. We shouldn't be dismayed. We should be focused on the return of Jesus Christ, which is right at the door. We see all the evidence. We see all of the signs. We see as well, on the opposite, the lying signs and wonders. that Jesus said all these things must happen just prior to his return, and they are happening. So whatever Caesar, whatever the president, whatever leader you have within your particular country, within your particular state, give them what they have. Let them do as they will with what they have, including our discussion about the vaccine that we're going to dive into tonight. We're not going to do a lot of technical. We're just going to be talking about it from the big picture. 40,000 feet on Patch Airlines. We don't need to be embroiled in the politics. That's a distraction. And as we've said many times about COVID-19 itself, that's the grand delusion that God has given them over to. They seek to remain in their sinful way and not turn their attention, not turn their stiff necks to Jesus Christ himself for salvation. And therefore, God himself gives them over to a strong delusion because they seek to continue in their sinful ways and seek to continue rejecting Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. All of the fears built into problem, reaction, solution simply melt away when your focus is on Jesus Christ and his soon return. I'd like to go to our next verse, which is Luke 3. And there we go. We're going to look at Barnes' commentary in just a moment after I read the scripture to you. Luke 3, verse 1. Now in the 15th year of the reign of Tiberius Caesar, Pontius Pilate being governor of Judea, and Herod being tetrarch of Galilee, and his brother Philip of Iturea, and of the region of Trachonitis, and Lysanias of Abilene. I like this commentary from Benson. I think that was the one I was going to share with you. No, Barnes. Barnes notes on the BibleHub.com in the commentary. Now in the 15th year, this was the 13th year of his being sole emperor. This is Augustus Tiberius Caesar. He was 2 years joint emperor with Augustus, and Luke reckons from the time when he was admitted to share the empire with Augustus Caesar. Tiberius Caesar succeeded Augustus in the empire and began his sole reign August 19th of 14 AD. He was a most infamous character, a scourge to the Roman people. He reigned 23 years and was succeeded by Caius Caligula, whom he appointed his successor on account of his notorious wickedness, and that he might be, as he expressed it, a, quote, serpent to the Romans. Okay? Understanding that Augustus Tiberius Caesar was not all that nice of a guy, let's put it that way. He was a notorious leader. He was an infamous leader, a scourge to the Roman people. Okay? And Caligula, you all may recall, was a barbarian, to put it nicely, to the Romans and to others. With those as a background, okay, I'd like to introduce to you, and we have published in Entangled Magazine about this company. Back in 2017, we introduced Palantir software. This software, this company, is coming to the forefront, and I'm going to give you some backstory on this, okay? This orb from Lord of the Rings and the Wizard is the same orb that you see here with President Trump laying hands on back in 2017. This is why we introduced this to you back then. It's because of the event here on the left that I'm going to dive into in just a moment. Get rid of some of my extra. This picture that you're looking at on the left is Donald Trump in the Middle East. He's pictured with Saudi, at that time, Saudi King Salman bin Abdulaziz and Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. Okay? And they are in a threat assessment center in Saudi Arabia. This is the opening ceremony. This is back in March of 2017. Okay? He was attending the opening of the Saudi Arabia's Global Center for Combating Extremist Ideology. It's a new organization dedicated to monitoring propaganda from ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and similar groups. The opening was attended by more than 50 Muslim heads of state from around the world. The Saudi royal family is well known for its opulent tastes and love of theatrics. They had Trump lay his hands on the glowing orb. That glowing orb is the trademark of Palantir software. Palantir software utilizes that globe, which is itself called a Palantir, because they openly, Peter Thiel, the founder of Palantir, openly assigns the company's name and their mission statement to that of Lord of the Rings and the Two Towers. On the right, you are seeing Saruman, and this is the orthonic Palantir. It is a camera giving an overview and then zooming in, providing the viewer with an omniscient picture of the whole of Middle-earth. The software company Palantir, I'm now quoting from Wikipedia. Software company Palantir Technologies was named by its founder, Peter Thiel, after Tolkien's Seeing Stones. A telescope at the Lowell Observatory using a main mirror with spherical curvature has the acronym Palantir. This stands for Precision Array of Large Aperture New Telescopes for Image Reconstruction and is meant to reference the far-seeing stones in The Lord of the Rings. Again, this is from Wikipedia. A Palantir appears in the film director Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings films. The Tolkien critic Alison Harrell compares Jackson to Saruman and his camera to a Palantir, writing that Jackson chooses to look through the perilous lens, putting his camera to use to exert control over the original Tolkien text. Harrell cites Laura Mulvey's essay Visual Pleasure in the Narrative Cinema, which describes scopophilia, the voyeuristic pleasure of looking, based on Sigmund Freud's writings on sexuality. Harrell gives an example, the sequence in The Two Towers where Jackson's camera, like an evil eye of Sauron, travels towards Saruman's tower, Isengard, and zooms into the dangerous Palantir, in her opinion giving the cinema viewer an omniscient and privileged perspective, consisting of a Saurian-like power to observe the whole Middle Earth. The sequence ends fittingly, in her opinion, with Mordor in the Eye of Sauron, bringing the viewer, like Sauron, to meet the enemy's gaze. Now, why do I go into all of that? Okay? Because for the company Palantir to call themselves Palantir demonstrates for those that are paying attention what it is that they are involved in. You cannot separate the spiritual from the physical. A Palantir is a fictional magical artifact from J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle-earth legendarium. A Palantir from the Quenya, Palin, far, tier, watch over, is described as an indestructible ball of crystal used for communication and to see events in other parts of Arda, whether past or future. The Palantir were made by the elves of Valinor in the First Age, as told in the Silmarillion. By the time of the Lord of the Rings at the end of the Third Age, the few Palantir remaining in existence are used in some climactic scenes by major characters. Okay? A major theme of Palantir usage, this is from Wikipedia, from the movies, the books, is that while the stones show real objects or events, they are an unreliable guide to action, and it is often unclear whether events are past or future. What is not shown may be more important than what is selectively presented. Further, users with sufficient power can choose what to show and what to conceal. In The Lord of the Rings, all uses of Palantir influence the action through deception or misreading of what is shown. Okay? So, you have the background on Palantir. Let me bring you up to the modern times, present times. I'd like you to take you to Barron's. This is a financial magazine, Barron's. This is from October 22nd of 2020. Big data firm Palantir working with the United States on vaccine effort. Big data company Palantir is working with U.S. health officials on a project to track the production and distribution of future COVID-19 vaccines. The project, first reported by the Wall Street Journal and confirmed by the AFP, would use data science to help manage the deployment of any vaccines. Now, I'd like to add, I sent you a video that I asked you to watch prior to this live stream. Okay? Palantir, which has drawn fire for its police and homeland security projects, is for one of its founders' close ties. President Donald Trump did not comment on the report. The journal reported that the software system with the code name Tiberius could help identify high priority populations at high risk of infection, but that the deal could draw fire by allowing the private company access to sensitive health information. At least one pharmaceutical firm has indicated it will seek authorization for a vaccine in the U.S. in November. That's Pfizer. Okay? More on that later. Palantir, which last month listed shares on the New York Stock Exchange, has defended its police and national security work in the face of critics who have said the company is enabling human rights violations. Created after the September 11, 2001 attacks with initial funding from a CIA venture capital unit, Palantir and its predictive analytics platform has reportedly helped the U.S. military locate Osama bin Laden and track weapons movements in the Middle East. More recently, it has worked with British health officials, along with Google and Microsoft, to track the progress of the COVID-19 outbreak according to contracts released by the Open Democracy Project. Again, this comes from Barron's. Okay? Let me give you a little background here. Back in 2017, I connected Palantir to D-Wave quantum computing. The connection between those two companies is that Palantir, as a software developer, was the very first third-party developer authorized by D-Wave to develop software, cloud-based software that will allow users access to D-Wave's quantum computers through the cloud. Palantir is helping D-Wave sell computer time. Palantir is using quantum computing to run its software. Palantir software is a cornerstone to something that I've presented to you for years, and that is the sentient world simulation. If you go to Palantir's website, you will find, if you look at the products tab, 3 primary product software programs that they list. Each of those programs functions to operate the sentient world simulation, in which every person on the planet is represented in their software as a node and given an avatar to replace their name. Now what we have here right now in front of us is that Palantir is identifying those people. Remember the 4 phases in the rollout of the administration of the vaccine? Remember, there are 4 phases, starting with people that are first responders, healthcare workers, and people that are at high risk. Okay? Pre-existing conditions and their age. Then we move through 3 more categories of the population in 4 phases of inoculation of the global population. This is what Palantir is responsible for, those 4 phases. Okay? They are responsible for contact tracing. They are responsible for identifying those populations that should be first, second, third, and fourth in line for the vaccines. Then, when the second vaccine is rolled out, they identify those that are eligible for the second round. Eligibility is based upon having received the first round of the vaccine. Okay? Pretty simple stuff. But when you have a company that is tied into quantum computing, when you have a program that is creating a virtual reality environment of the entire planet, okay? When you have a company that is on the spiritual side, tied into the occult, that they utilize a crystal ball, a tool of divination, a black art, a forbidden technology, forbidden knowledge. Okay? You have to ask yourself, I'm being very methodical here tonight, folks. I'm not just going to run all this stuff off. I'm trying to take it step by step, very methodically for you. Palantir Technologies is a public American software company that specializes in big data analytics. Big data analytics is pattern recognition. It identifies problems in software. It identifies what we've identified in the past as golden nuggets buried within big data. Golden nuggets that provide competitive advantage in the business world, but provide you hidden patterns that may, from a perspective of divination, help you to predict the future. Pattern recognition, prognostication, is the most valuable commodity on the planet. If you can predict the future, nothing else is as valuable as that information. That's why these guys are all involved in divination. That's what Palantir is all about. Remember, the crystal ball sees the past and the future. It can recognize patterns in the past and derive prognostications from those patterns that may foretell the future. Divination. Okay? Palantir is headquartered in Denver, Colorado. They used to be headquartered in Silicon Valley. Okay? It was founded by Peter Thiel. Now, he also was with Elon Musk, co-founder of PayPal. That's where they made their money. Nathan Gettings, Joe Lonsdale, Stephen Cohen, and Alex Karp in 2003. Google Alex Karp. Take a look at that gentleman's image. I'll just leave it at that. The company's name is derived from the Lord of the Rings, where the magical Palantir were seeing stones of deception. Now, why would the United States government hire a company that is basing its software development upon a dark mantic art? Well, because they're all involved in that. They want to predict the future. And they want to be able to observe and control every person on the planet. Again, go back to the discussion of the sentient world simulation in Purdue University and their SEAS, that's the acronym, their SEAS program. SEAS. This is all for the beast system, the mark of the beast system, that if you do not have the mark, you cannot buy and sell. What I'm outlining for you tonight is the software that controls all of humanity. Right now, it is being applied to COVID-19, to the vaccine distribution, and then the administration, the inoculation of the vaccine. The company is known for 3 projects in particular: Palantir Gotham, listen to these names, Gotham, Palantir Metropolis, and Palantir Foundry. Palantir Gotham is used by counterterrorism analysts at offices of the United States intelligence community and the United States Department of Defense. In the past, Gotham was used by fraud investigators at the Recovery, Accountability, and Transparency Board, a former U.S. federal agency which operated from 2009 to 2015. Gotham was also used by cyber analysts at Information Warfare Monitor, a Canadian public-private venture which operated from 2003 to 2012. Palantir Metropolis is used by hedge funds, banks, and financial service firms. Palantir Foundry is used by corporate clients such as Morgan Stanley, Merck, Airbus, and Fiat Chrysler Automobiles. Now, this is from Wikipedia. This information is rather dated, okay? Palantir's original clients were federal agencies of the U.S. from the intelligence community, the United States IC, It has since expanded its customer base to serve state and local governments as well as private companies in the financial and healthcare industries. Karp, Palantir's chief executive officer, announced in 2013 that the company would not pursue an IPO, an initial public offering. Okay? They went public this year. Okay? Let me skip through some of this. I'm just going to take this one. Palantir Gotham software program, formerly known as Palantir Government, integrates structured and unstructured data, that's labeled and unlabeled data. Again, go back to 2017 where I presented labeled and unlabeled data to you in the context of discussing pattern recognition within data. Artificial intelligence utilizing labeled and unlabeled, what they call here structured and unstructured data. AI can use data that is not labeled, not structured by humans. What does it do with that data? It identifies patterns. That's what Palantir Gotham does. It's an AI program. This provides search and discovery capabilities, knowledge management, and secure collaboration. So understand that this is a surveillance system. This is a oversight. Look at Metropolis software. Look at Palantir Apollo. Look at the names of these software programs. Speaks to the spiritual side connected to the physical. These guys are nothing more than occult practitioners, okay? It's very obvious, and they make it very obvious. It's easy to see that they are. Now, I would like you to take, if you haven't already as a patron, look at the video that I sent to you where 60 Minutes was conducting an interview regarding Operation Warp Speed, okay? With that in mind, I want to share from the Air Force Medical Service. I sent you this article. This is dated November 2nd of this year. Operation Warp Speed Technology. Expertise help determine vaccine distribution. Now, we're at the distribution phase. You have to have distribution before you can begin to inoculate, begin to inject. Remember the 4 phases. Phase 1, 2, and 3 will involve a hypodermic needle, a syringe, and someone to stick that in someone's arm, in their shoulder, to inoculate them. You have to ask yourself at this point, when did they suddenly decide that they had a vaccine available? If you have a distribution system, yes, you can set up all of the logistics. You can put all the people in place, all the physical buildings, distribution centers, have contracts lined up with trucking companies, shipping companies. You can have military and civilian personnel all lined up, all in agreement, have literally their marching orders, okay? But now you have Pfizer this week, and I should have presented this on Tuesday, and again, I apologize that I wasn't able to. But all of a sudden, we have literally the vaccine being manufactured. Watch the 60 Minutes video that I sent to the patrons. All of a sudden, we have a vaccine that can be distributed. It's almost like they just dropped it on us. There was no fanfare, no big announcement that said, oh, okay, we have a winner. It's Pfizer, it's Moderna, it's this, it's that, it doesn't matter. Pfizer's the winner so far. There will be other vaccines from other manufacturers, especially when we get to round 2, the second vaccination round, okay? But all of a sudden, here it is. We have something to distribute. 10 military officers, again, this is from the Air Force Medical Service website. 10 military officers assigned to Operation Warp Speed are embedded at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to assist the allocation and distribution of COVID-19 vaccine. Operation Warp Speed, led by the Department of Health and Human Services and DoD, employs a, quote, whole America approach to develop and deliver 300 million doses of the COVID-19 vaccine and therapeutics to treat the virus. Again, this is dated November 2nd. More than 600 miles from Operation Warp Speed headquarters in Washington, D.C., each of the Army, Navy, and Air Force officers in Atlanta are teamed with the CDC regional coordinator responsible for a specific area of the country and its territories. The country's existing public health infrastructure is well tested. We see evidence every fall when Americans receive the flu vaccine in large numbers, but these are not normal times, said Army General Gus Perna. That's the general that was interviewed in the 60 Minutes piece that I shared with the patrons. Operation Warp Speed's Chief Operating Officer, okay, that's who Gus Perna is. He's a logistics general. Leveraging our military planning and logistics capability and combining that with proven methods will allow existing systems to scale quickly to get the vaccine to the American people. The military liaisons and partner regional coordinators are communicating daily with various agencies within their assigned regions to discuss how vaccines will be prioritized, packaged, and shipped. Information exchanges are continuous as regions work through the special handling instructions like cold storage and other considerations surrounding delivery. Remember, we talked about the cold chain. The chain cannot be broken. The temperatures must be maintained or the vaccine itself is rendered useless. All the way to the point of actually inserting the needle into the shoulder, into the upper arm of the person, okay? That's the weak link in this whole thing. Many of you have been sending me articles saying exactly what I have said. You've acknowledged that we've been saying the weak link is the cold storage, that the vaccine, based upon something that must be kept below not just freezing, but below zero. It must be kept in dry ice. Logistically, it cannot be distributed on a global basis. There's just not enough refrigeration units to be able to do that. You can't just put it in styrofoam containers that have dry ice and expect it to make it out into the middle of the deserts, into the jungles. It's not going to happen. Now, I'm saying all of that because I'm repeating what I've said many, many times, and you will see this come out in further stories as we move to phase 4. I'm not talking about testing, talking about the delivery of the vaccine and the inoculation, phases 1 through 4. Okay, you patrons have the articles regarding those 4 phases, and we've published it in the pages of Entangled magazine. The point here is problem, reaction, solution. They will go through the first 3 phases based upon a vaccine that must be refrigerated and delivered in a syringe through a hypodermic needle and injected into someone, and it will be a complete failure. By design, it is a complete failure. Phases 1, 2, 3 will be failures. Why? Problem, reaction, solution. They have to get the global population, I've been saying this since January of 2013, they have to get the global population so fearful, so pent up in their demand for a final solution. You can imagine people getting so fed up with being locked down and all of its ramifications of lockdown, saying we are sick and tired of being locked down. Lockdown today is not lockdown tomorrow. As we move through phases 1, 2, and 3, the lockdowns will be stepped up through each phase, getting worse and worse and more draconian. The purpose of that lockdown being increased, being more stringent, and many of you are sending me articles seeing already these lockdown increases in many states in the United States, and plans for further lockdowns. We're seeing quarantines being openly talked about, people openly being discussed, being removed from their homes, as we have said here for months and months, all year long. And curfews. They have to get people so angry that they will take the solution that is offered. They will demand the solution, as I said in January 2013 when I talked about this. Demand the solution. You could not force it on the population. That's what I said back in 2013. You could not force the global population to take the vaccine. The same is true today. You can lock people down, but you can't force everybody in the world to take the vaccine. General Gus Perna in the 60 Minutes piece said virtually the same thing. He used the words shame on us 3 times. If we don't do this, shame on us. So how do you get the entire population vaccinated? You get the entire global population to demand the vaccine. You couldn't force people to it, but it plays into the endpoint goal. The goal is phase 4. The goal, wrapped up as a solution, is to say, hey, we have a better vaccine that does not require refrigeration. We do not have to have a cold chain. This vaccine is embedded in a microneedle array patch that does not require the cold chain. It does not require a medical person that's been trained, even at a technician level, to administer it. You can self-administer it. It's as easy as putting a Band-Aid on your right hand or on your forehead, and it will be delivered to you. And the world will applaud the final solution. It is at that point, and I want to underscore this, and I'm going to read some more from this Air Force medicine paper. It is at phase 4 that the vaccine that is delivered qualifies as the mark of the beast. Because it is not just the vaccine. It's the quantum dots. It's the luciferase. It's the artificial atoms composed only of electrons that are quantum entangled, that are now quantum entangled with the quantum computers that operate with quantum entangled electrons in their qubits, their quantum bit chipsets, that operate the sentient world simulation through the software of Palantir. And the Palantir software that is involved directly in what I'm reading to you now about the distribution and then the administration, the inoculation of the vaccine, and the contact tracing, and the test results, and then the leading to the second inoculation, all of that is handled by Palantir's Tiberius software program. Augustus Tiberius Caesar. Render unto Caesar, said Jesus Christ, what is Caesar's. Now you see all the connections. I'll continue with a quote here from Air Force Medicine. Like most of America, public health professionals are working through the challenges brought on by quarantines, telework, and social distancing, said Deacon Maddox, Operation Warp Speed's Chief of Plans, Operations, and Analytics. While the pandemic stresses both people and systems, our expertise in technology tools provide a disciplined and deliberate approach to prioritize vaccine delivery and ease the burden of public health officials throughout the nation. Operation Warp Speed is using cutting-edge data platform to collect, correlate, visualize data across the entire operation. That's not very good English there. I'm reading it verbatim. The Tiberius platform is loaded with data from various sources: U.S. Census, Department of Health and Human Services, state health offices, and the CDC. Tiberius integrates the data related to manufacturing, clinical trials, supply chain allocation, and state and territory planning, delivery, and administration of both vaccine products and kits containing needles, syringes, and other supplies needed to administer the vaccine. No personally identifiable or personal health information is contained in the Tiberius system. That's according to Air Force Medicine. I do not agree with that, but I'm reading. All 50 states recently submitted COVID-19 distribution plans to the CDC, and the Operation Warp Speed team is involved in helping the CDC review those plans. Once the CDC Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices makes its recommendation on who, okay? Let me say that again. Once the CDC Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices makes its recommendations on who should first receive the vaccine, that's phase one, the HHS Secretary, in consultation with national leadership, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, will decide how to prioritize the initially limited doses. Operation Warp Speed will input these decisions into Tiberius, and using several other logistical factors, compute the quantities to be allocated to each jurisdiction. The jurisdictions will work inside the Tiberius platform to decide where every allocated dose will go, from local doctors' offices to large medical centers. These decisions will then be sent to distributors to complete deliveries across the country. Quote, we still have several unknowns, but that is where the military is best at. Planning for every contingency, and that is what we are helping states with now, Maddox said. Every state is different. No two information systems are the same. Through the Tiberius software, though, Maddox said the team has visibility. Okay, remember the crystal ball, the Palantir crystal ball. Said the team has visibility within one system to see a full snapshot. That is the sentient world simulation. Okay? This is why it was developed. Go all the way back to 2007 to Purdue University's white paper on the SWS. This is why D-Wave's quantum computers and IBM's and Rigetti's, why all of the quantum computers that exist today have been created. It is for the purpose of integration into the sentient world simulation. That is the virtual reality that once a person takes the mark, and at the nucleus within the cell of every cell of a person's body changes. The DNA is changed by the RNA delivered by the microneedle array patch. That includes changing how a person thinks. And because of the delivery of the quantum dots and the entanglement of their artificial atoms, I shared the paper with you in the November issue of Entangled magazine. The artificial atoms. These are quantum entangled within the human body. These are the parts of the quantum dots made up of nanoscale diamonds. Read Entangled magazine. Those quantum dots provide the connection of every human mind that has taken the mark of the beast. The connection through quantum entanglement, and yes, 5G certainly plays a role. 6G plays a role in the communication system, which is a blockchain system. That is the infrastructure of the beast system. How did they build blockchain? They appealed to human greed through the development of cryptocurrencies. The sentient world simulation is the virtual reality of the Antichrist. The mark of the beast plugs every human mind that has taken the mark into that virtual reality, the SWS, which is operated through quantum computing. The basis of quantum computing is quantum entanglement as the system of communication. Entangled electrons within every cell of a human that has taken the mark, that is entangled with the quantum computer's own electrons that are quantum entangled. This is how the Antichrist is able to track every person. This is why Scripture says no man can buy or sell unless he takes the mark of the beast. This is the technology that provides that functionality, that command and control of the Antichrist. You're seeing it roll out right here. I'm reading it to you. Through the Tiberius software, though, Maddox said the team has visibility within one system to see a full snapshot across all U.S. jurisdictions to provide decision support for distribution and allocation using 2020 technology. While most of the nation is eagerly anticipating the first vaccine delivery, Maddox noted the Atlanta team is looking beyond initial distribution to the hundreds of millions of doses expected in subsequent shipments. Timing for the first dose is the beginning, but we are going to be in continual distribution as production comes off the line daily or weekly, and it must be distributed, Maddox said. Okay? I can't see the chat room. I've been reading, so I am just imagining you guys are going crazy in both chat rooms, in DLive's chat room and in the Twitch chat room. Okay? This is it. This is it. They have decided that they have a vaccine. Now, companies like Moderna are not going to be left in the dust. There are going to be more than one vaccines. rolled out. You cannot separate the physical from the spiritual. It's right in front of our eyes. I'm showing it to you right here in this graphic. This threat assessment center, as I call it in Saudi Arabia, when I presented this back in 2017 to all of you, I explained what they were doing. And if you go and Google the images for the Saudi Arabian Threat Center, they were giving you a glimpse of the sentient world simulation itself. That's what this is. They're showing 3 years ago what they were building for the Antichrist to control the world, to be able to see everything that is going on at one time. Through the Tiberius, I'm being repetitive. Through the Tiberius software, though, Maddox said the team has visibility. They choose their words very carefully. Even in the Air Force Medicine website that I'm reading from, they choose their words specifically. Said the team has visibility, that's the simulation, within one system, that's the global sentient world simulation that Palantir's been running for years, to see a full snapshot. They can call it up in an instant and see all the data across all U.S. jurisdictions to provide decision support for distribution and allocation using 2020 technology. I'm not trying to generate fear here. I'm giving you the facts. We are here right now. We're not waiting on a vaccine. They have the vaccine. We're not waiting on a distribution system. They have the distribution system. If there was ever any doubt as to their ability to distribute the vaccine to every person in the United States, and by default, you can extrapolate this beyond the United States to every person on the planet. Because what's going on here in the U.S. that I'm reading to you now is going on throughout the world. They can now reach out and touch every person on the planet. But I want to reinforce to you, these are the intermediate steps leading to the revealing of the identity of the Antichrist. Phase 1, 2, and 3 must fail. The Antichrist, as Scripture shows us, performs lying signs and wonders. The lying signs and wonders, that category includes the solution to the problems presented in phases 1, 2, and 3. The miracle of the microneedle array patch solving all of the problems. And people will cheer, and people will breathe a sigh of relief, and they will see visions of normalcy dancing in their minds. Visions of normalcy. Visions of the lockdowns being done away with. Even visions of people taken from their homes being released from the camps. But in the meantime, they're limiting the number of people who can sit down and have a Thanksgiving dinner together, to celebrate Christmas together. You guys have been sending me the articles. They're all over the place. The lockdown. The absurdity of saying you cannot get together in your own home with your friends and relatives and family for Thanksgiving dinner. You can't join together and celebrate Christmas. The purpose of that is problem, reaction, solution, to generate the anger in people. They will, phases 1, 2, and 3, accelerate right through those 3. Operation Warp Speed. They'll move right through those 3 phases, but they're preliminary phases. They are not the solution to the problem. That's left for the Antichrist to reveal. Okay? That's for him to get all the glory. Let me shift gears just a little bit. I shared this to verify fans' vaccination status, or whether they've tested negative for the coronavirus within a 24 to 72 hour window. Folks, smartphones equipped with a application. This is all, look at June, July, August, September, October, November, Entangled Magazine. We've presented all of this. We started talking about it back in March. Smartphones with an application that is able to interpret the near infrared wavelength of energy known as luciferase, a luminous broadcast at the near infrared wavelength from the quantum dots embedded in the skin that then flow through the entire circulatory system and enter every cell in the body, delivering messenger RNA that changes the host DNA within the nucleus of every cell in a person's body. The smartphones can detect what has been coined as the tattoo. It's not visible. Near infrared is beyond the ability for the human naked eye to detect. Therefore, a smartphone is used. And that verifies, as they say here, uses smartphones to verify fans' vaccination status. We warned you months and months and months ago that this is how it was going to play out. Here it is right here now. We told you they would begin talking about this because they're trying to get people's emotions built up for a solution. A hint is what they're presenting in this Billboard article. A hint of normalcy. You can go back to being a concert goer if you take the vaccine. You see how they're dangling it in front of people? Ooh, a return to normalcy. All I have to do is take a vaccine? Fantastic. What they're not saying, and I haven't even completed the first paragraph here. What they're not saying is that in order for the smartphone to detect and verify a fan's vaccination status, that can only be done by the quantum dots that fluoresce. That's luciferase, the quantum dots. And there are several different colors that different quantum dots fluoresce, naturally fluoresce at. Those will not be in the hypodermic needles. Those will not be in the syringes. They are only embedded in the microneedle array patch. What I'm reading to you is phase 4 vaccination. As a part of that preparation, Ticketmaster has been working on a framework for post-pandemic fan safety that uses smartphones to verify fans' vaccination status or whether they've tested negative for the coronavirus within a 24 to 72 hour window. Many details of the plan, which is still in development phase, will rely on 3 separate components: the Ticketmaster digital ticket app, third-party health information companies like Clear Health Pass or IBM's Digital Health Pass. These are applications that will be downloaded into a smartphone, okay? These are the applications that detect the near infrared wavelength of the luciferase fluorescent quantum dots, okay? And testing and vaccination distribution providers like LabCorp and CVS Minute Clinic. Here's how it would work if approved. After purchasing a ticket for a concert, fans would need to verify that they have already been vaccinated, which would provide approximately 1 year of COVID-19 protection, or test negative for coronavirus approximately 24 to 72 hours prior to the event. The length of coverage a test would provide would be governed by regional health authorities. If attendees of a Friday night concert had to be tested 48 hours in advance, most could start the testing process the day before the event, and they go on from there. Okay? All right, so you can read the balance of that. That just gives you an indication of where things are headed. We've all been expecting this. This is really not, shocking news. Now, to back up what we just presented, again, I'm encouraging you to watch that video that I sent, okay? Bear with me, I'm trying to get through some of these tabs I've got here. I sent you an article regarding Pfizer. COVID-19 vaccine may have unpleasant side effects. That will mean it's working, they say. Again, COVID-19 vaccine may have unpleasant side effects. That will mean it's working. This is according to ABC or NBC News, Kaiser Health News through NBC, dated November 12th, today. Pfizer is expected to seek federal permission to release its COVID-19 vaccine by the end of November. Okay? Again, has there been big fanfare in the mainstream media that Pfizer is the winner? We knew. They were talking about, they were hinting at, they were saying there's the possibility that we would have a vaccine in November or early December. We are in the first half of November. They're saying that they will seek federal permission to release its COVID-19 vaccine by the end of November. That means to begin distribution of it. They're already manufacturing it. Look at the video from 60 Minutes. They're already producing, getting ready for shipment, the vaccine. I'll continue reading. A move that holds promise for quelling the pandemic, but also sets up a tight time frame to make sure consumers understand what it will mean to get the shots. The vaccine, and likely most others, will require 2 doses to work, injections that must be given weeks apart, company protocols show. Scientists anticipate that the shots will cause enervating flu-like side effects, including sore arms, muscle aches, and fever that could last days and temporarily sideline some people from work or school. And even if a vaccine proves 90% effective, the rate Pfizer touted for its product, 1 in 10 recipients would still be vulnerable. That means, at least in the short term, as population level immunity grows, people can't stop social distancing and throw away their masks. Left out so far in the push to develop vaccines with unprecedented speed has been a large-scale plan to communicate effectively about those issues in advance, said Saad Omer, director of the Yale Institute for Global Health. He said, "You need to be ready," he said. "You can't look for your communication materials the day after the vaccine is authorized." Omer, who declined to comment and report that he's been considered for a post in the new administration of President-elect Joe Biden, called for the rollout of a robust messaging campaign based on the best scientific evidence about vaccine hesitancy and acceptance. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has created a strategy called Vaccinate with Confidence, but it lacks the necessary resources, Omer said. We need to communicate effectively, and we need to start planning for this now, he said. Such broad-based outreach will be necessary in a country where, as of mid-October, only half of Americans said they'd be willing to get a COVID-19 vaccine. Initial doses of any vaccine would be limited at first, but experts predict they may be widely available by the middle of next year. Discussing potential side effects early could counter misinformation that overstates or distorts the risk. The biggest tragedy, he says, or Dr. Preeti Malani, Chief Health Officer and a professor of medicine at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, says, the biggest tragedy would be if we have a safe and effective vaccine that people are hesitant to get. Pfizer and its partner, the German company BioNTech, said Monday that their vaccine appears to protect 9 in 10 people from getting COVID, although they didn't release underlying data. It's the first of 4 COVID vaccines in large-scale efficacy tests in the U.S. to have posted results. Now, Moderna took a lot of hits for not releasing their test data. And Pfizer's doing the same thing. They're not releasing their underlying data, it says here. How do we know that it works for 9 out of 10? How do we know what those people that it didn't work on, what happened to them? Okay? Dr. William Schaffner, a professor of preventative medicine and health policy at Vanderbilt University Medical Center, says, we are asking people to take a vaccine that is going to hurt. There are lots of sore arms and substantial numbers of people who feel crummy with headaches and muscle pain for a day or two. Persuading people who experience these symptoms to return in 3 to 4 weeks for a second dose and a second round of flu-like symptoms could be a tough sell, Schaffner said. Anyway, you can continue and look at the rest of this article. What I've read to you so far can be summed up this way. They are already launching, and they will continue to ramp up a propaganda campaign to get people to become what are known as early adopters. They will begin to say things like, be a good citizen. Remember, they've said, we're all in this together. They will build upon, we are all in this together. The kumbaya. They will build upon, do this for your community. We're building a community, or as Hillary used to say, it takes a village. And as they begin ramping up this, do this for the community type of campaign, that's what I'm calling it. Those that are anti-vaxxers, that label they like to put out there, or disinformation agents, like they like to label, they will be pointed out as the enemy. They will be pointed out as the people who are not willing to do their part for the good of the community. Now, from 40,000 feet on Patch Airlines, the big picture, when we talk about the community, for the good of the community, do this for the whole world. The big picture is the one world. This is taking apart the national boundaries through healthcare. This is doing away with national sovereignty through healthcare. This is building the world global community to get people indoctrinated into thinking as a herd. They've already put out herd immunity, which is a valid term in the medical community. In the control of disease, yes, herd immunity has been a common term for years and years, probably 100 years or more. But it is used specifically because they choose their words carefully. Herd is a subliminal implant to get people to accept the concept of thinking alike, to joining the herd. And the 180 of that is, if you do not join the herd, if you do not have the mindset of the majority, then you are labeled as the problem. You are labeled as the cause of the continuation of COVID-19 because you're not cooperating. You are putting the community at risk. This is the propaganda program. Okay? In the context of their modus operandi of problem, reaction, solution, people will react and push back against and even attack, verbally and probably physically, those that are identified now as the enemy to the solution. If you speak out against the COVID-19 vaccine, you're the enemy. You're putting the community at risk, so you are the enemy of the community. Problem, reaction, solution is there must be a solution to the problem of the perceived enemy, those that will not join the herd mentality. Therefore, when the lockdown step is arrived at of mandatory lockdowns, followed by mandatory vaccinations of everyone, the herd will demand the solution that those problem people refusing the vaccine, that they be taken away somewhere and forced to take the vaccine, because the herd perceives that as the solution. That's the common thread. It's always problem, reaction, solution. That's how you can take all these things apart and perform what we call the 180 to see the truth, to see how it's going to play out. This is to prepare you in your independent thinking, your critical thinking skills, your ability to see through their plans, to see what is coming, and for you to be psychologically, mentally prepared for this. It's up to you as an individual how you are going to deal with this. I'm just simply putting out my observations, putting out the papers, putting out the articles, so that you can see the trend, you can see what is going on. It's not difficult for you to predict the future. You don't need Palantir software, you don't need divinatory tools. You don't need to be a practitioner of the dark arts to see how this is playing out and how it will in the near future. This is why Kathleen and I have labeled our times that we're in right now the season of the Antichrist. He's going to be revealed. Why do we have Operation Warp Speed? Why do they call it warp speed? Certainly this was borrowed from Star Trek. And those that are paying attention, you know where I'm going in my next statement. But Operation Warp Speed was lifted from Star Trek. Why are they moving at warp speed? Because those in the dark realm, in the realm of Satan, in the demonic realm, they know that Jesus is returning very, very soon. They are trying to get in place all of the technological components of the beast system. Because Satan in his hubris believes he can defeat Jesus Christ, believes through his technology he can kill God and God's angels. He believes that he can achieve the damnation of human souls. Why change the DNA? The question is, what is the DNA going to be changed into? Well, that's rather academic. It's rather irrelevant what the DNA will manifest as. It's the result of the change that is more important. And we've shared that from Scripture, that God no longer recognizes a person. They do not find a person's name written in the Lamb's Book of Life. Name, in our interpretation, is another label for DNA. He doesn't recognize the DNA that has been changed through this vaccination program, that is moving at warp speed so that everything is in place for the installation, the revealing of the Antichrist. Therefore, we are in the season of the Antichrist. But because of that, we are 180 of that knowledge about the Antichrist season, is that we know, because we are looking heavenward for the expectant return of our Savior, we know how close we are. We are in the season of the return of Jesus Christ. That's overarching the season of the Antichrist, because the Antichrist will be defeated when Jesus Christ returns. Evil will finally be done with. And those that are not saved, those that take the mark of the beast and whose names are not found written in the Lamb's Book of Life, are cast into the lake of fire. That's where that Lamb's Book of Life discussion comes from. People that take the mark of the beast and their DNA is changed will be cast into the lake of fire. What is the objective of changing the DNA? It's the damnation of souls to perdition. It says that right in Scripture. You take the mark of the beast, you're condemned to hell for all eternity. There is no salvation. That's why we are so fervently and repetitively putting out this information about the vaccine changing the host DNA. And from 40,000 feet, what's the big picture? Why would they bring on COVID-19? Why would they label it a pandemic? Why would they claim all the numbers and statistics of cases and deaths? Why would they do a global lockdown? Why would they institute all of these actions, including economic? I shared with you an update on Libra for the patrons. Why would they institute a new financial system? Why would they do a global reset? Why would they collapse all the economies simultaneously? Why all of these, as we look down from our vantage point and see the big picture? Why all of this now? If The vaccine was not designed to change a person's DNA. They would not do all of this other if it were not for the purpose of changing a person's DNA. If it were not for the purpose of coercing people into demanding a solution. And eventually in phase 4 of the vaccine rollout, they will demand the solution. They will demand the solution presented as an alternative to this logistical nightmare in the form of a syringe and a needle delivery system, in a cold chain distribution system. It will be a nightmare. But it's a nightmare by design. I'm being repetitive and repetitive and repetitive of my repetitive for the purpose of cementing this in your understanding that the DNA will be changed. We've shared in Entangled Magazine the actual articles. I've sent out to hundreds of people the link to the article that I've shared in the last couple of weeks as one of the smoking guns, if you want to call it that, dating back to 2010 with Dr. Craig Venter in La Jolla, California, where they modified the host DNA using synthetic genes, synthetic genetic sequence to change the pre-existing genetic sequence in the host DNA. We've read that to you 3 times in 3 different live streams. It's in Entangled Magazine, and I've emailed it to people that have requested it. We have Project Rooftop, the PDF that's now gone out to at least 500 people that have requested it. If you want it, just type go to anthonypatch.com, go to the contact tab. In the subject line, just put PDF, and I'll send you the PDF of Project Rooftop. Very succinctly, in a graphical form, it shows the microneedle array components and delivery system and changing of the DNA. I've been disappointed to learn recently in this last week through emails that there are professing Christian broadcasters in the alternative media, more broadcasters than what I have specifically named in the past. And I will not name names going forward because it's not constructive to do that. But there are professing Christians that are saying, no, the COVID-19 vaccine will not change a person's DNA. My answer to that, your answer to that, I can well imagine, is that it's a lack of information on their part. And to those that are professing Christians, and they don't even have to be a professing Christian, I'm just simply saying, if you do not understand, if you have not seen the evidence, scientific evidence, not conjecture, that this changes the host DNA, a person's DNA, messenger RNA, and the other types of RNA that I listed in the November issue of Entangled Magazine. We'll just say it's RNA. The RNA does change the DNA that is in the nucleus permanently. It renders it inert. If people are denying that, Christian or secular, or of other faiths, I urge you, go to anthonypatch.com. There are 3 monthly issues that you can access free of charge go to my homepage, go to the large image of the cover of June, July, and August Entangled magazines, and you can download those for free. You can distribute them. They're in PDF form to anybody that you care to, but it shows the scientific evidence and testimony. Get the information. If you think that it will not change a person's DNA, you have not read the scientific evidence that it does. Don't be lazy. Get into the biology. Get into reading. I'll give you probably the easiest direction to go. Look at Dr. Craig Venter. Look at his research dating from 2010, when they produced through synthetic genetic sequences, synthetic DNA. How do you get synthetic DNA? Through combining the nucleotides, the building blocks of DNA, building blocks of RNA, arranging those nucleotides in a sequence that you design in a computer. It's called in silico DNA. You create your own synthetic pattern, coding, arrangement of the building blocks of DNA and RNA, and then you print out with a 3D bioprinter, or you take an existing organism, as Dr. Venter did with the first experiments in this in 2010. You take an existing microorganism and you introduce your synthetic DNA into that microorganism, into its cells, and it naturally enters into the cytoplasm and penetrates the membrane of the nucleus and renders inert the existing DNA of that bioorganism. Thus, it permanently changes that bioorganism. I've done this with E. coli because it's so robust, as one example. That was in 2010. Imagine what they're doing now with COVID-19 vaccine research based upon messenger RNA, Pfizer, Moderna, and a few others. There are others that are basing their vaccine development on DNA. DNA will not change the existing host DNA. Only RNA is capable of doing that. Okay? Now, Sunday, I'm going to dive into this deeper. Sunday, I'm going to do some nuts and bolts. We don't typically do that on Sunday, but Sunday I am going to get into some deeper aspects into how RNA does this in the nucleus to change the DNA. It's going to be somewhat repetitive, but if you go into the last few issues of Entangled magazine, you'll be up to speed for Sunday. The November issue was very technical, probably way too dry and too technical for most people in terms of keeping their interest. But it was for the purpose of publishing the evidence. And I'm going to go through some of that, break it down for you on Sunday. So if you that have been emailing me and saying this pastor or this alternative media broadcaster on YouTube or Twitch or others, if they're saying that the DNA will not be changed by the vaccine, contact those people, email those people that you know. Tell them you need to get on Twitch or you need to get on DLive on Sunday and listen to what Anthony Patch is going to present in terms of the evidence definitive evidence. It's in the magazines and it's in the past live streams, but if you want to put this argument to rest with these people, tell them to listen, and I'll present it. The expectation is that there are, and again, I'm going to focus on professing Christians and their organizations that will continue the drumbeat of the narrative that it will not change the DNA. Even in the face of the evidence, they will still say to their listeners, to their readers, to their congregations, don't worry, it's not going to change the DNA. The focal point is the microneedle array patch. That delivers the RNA that will change the DNA. And as I just read to you regarding the concerns that the first people receiving the vaccines are going to have flu-like symptoms and sore arms, okay, and fevers for 2 or 3 days. That's nothing in comparison to what Scripture tells us. Those people that take the mark of the beast break out in sores and boils and are in such agony that they, for 5 months, seek death in all its forms and are not successful in finding death. Call it short-term immortality. But the Bible is telling us exactly, biologically, what is happening at the cellular level to people. Okay? Let's go back to Star Trek. I kind of left that as a dangling participle, if you will. Operation Warp Speed having been lifted from Star Trek. And now you know where I'm going. Palantir, the name of their software, Tiberius. Before I give you the punchline, let me look in the chat room. I want to see how many people have already jumped ahead on this. Tiberius, I'm looking in the D-Live chat room right now. Tiberius and Star Trek. Those are your hints. I'm playing a little bit. I want to kind of lighten things up a little. Tell me in the D-Live chat room. Tiberius. Christine, you got it. You got it. Christine got it. All right. So now I'm going to jump over to the other live stream. Let me see if I can even find it to open. Come on. There it is. All right, guys, on Twitch in the chat room. Star Trek, Tiberius. Give me the connection. All right. Tiberius and Star Trek. Come on, guys. We had someone over on D-Live who put it together. Come on. Tiberius and Star Trek. I'm waiting. Come on. Come on. I guess the guys over on D-Live were a little more attentive to what's going on. The question is, what's the relationship of Tiberius to Star Trek? Mr. Wilson, all right, you already gave it away. Janie, you gave it away. James Tiberius Kirk, Captain Kirk, his middle name is Tiberius. What do you win? my gratitude, okay? My ever-loving gratitude that you guys are paying attention. You are critical thinkers, okay? Augustus Caesar, Augustus Tiberius Caesar. Okay? At the time of Jesus, J.K. Bell is talking about Augustus Tiberius Caesar at the time of Jesus. We now have Tiberius software that is going to be the command and control software for the Antichrist. Okay? Why did they label it? Why did Palantir? It's crystal. Why did they label it Tiberius? Because it is announcing this is the season of the Antichrist. They are announcing their software as the command and control system within the sentient world simulation, not only for COVID-19, but for the mark of the beast itself. Tiberius software, mark of the beast. Tiberius software, Antichrist. Okay? J.K. Bell is saying, and they want to rename the town Tiberius in Israel to Trumperius, after Trump, and he's behind Operation Warp Speed. Well, he's the figurehead. So there are the pieces. You cannot separate the physical from the spiritual. Tiberius is spiritual because it is announcing Augustus Tiberius Caesar, the Antichrist. Caesar was a type, as we often say in Scripture. Caesar was a type of Antichrist. Okay, I'm not saying Trump is the Antichrist. I'm not naming anyone as the Antichrist. He hasn't been revealed yet. In God's timing, in His infinite wisdom, He will reveal the identity of the Antichrist. But Satan is revealing the season of the Antichrist by way of Tiberius software tied to the mark of the beast, otherwise known as the COVID-19 vaccine. Okay? From 40,000 feet on Patch Airlines, it's very easy for all of us to see this. This is not difficult. Again, I would ask you, I would implore you to contact those people that you've been sending to me saying it's not going to change the DNA. They need to listen to these live streams. They need to get into Entangled Magazine. If they're too lazy to do their own research, have them read Entangled Magazine. Okay? It's coming at warp speed. Absolutely it is. So, we did a couple of loops on Patch Airlines tonight, but I brought you all the way back around to the beginning. I took you through Palantir, took you through the sentient world simulation, took you a little bit over to D-Wave and showed their connection with Palantir, showed you the sentient world simulation that was presented in Saudi Arabia through the Palantir crystal ball. Okay? And now we're ready to land. It's been an interesting ride tonight. Yep, Mr. Wilson, I would agree. If the gate in the nucleus is so tiny to let a single strand through, once you bond to the host DNA, you are too big to get through the gate. I would say that's a good way of summarizing it. For those that are familiar with biology, immunology, understand that in the normal biology, the normal action of RNA is to give rise to the double strands that we call DNA. RNA expresses proteins. Proteins are recognized by the immune system. If they are the proteins of a virus, the immune system responds to those virus-based vaccine, or virus. The proteins of a virus are recognized by the immune system. Okay? This is what the mainstream, this is what the pharmaceutical companies, Moderna and Pfizer and others, will tell you about RNA. They will continue the narrative that it produces, it expresses a protein. Okay? And that it is the immune system responding to that protein expressed by the artificial introduction of RNA expressing the protein that the immune system is recognizing and responding to. Thus, it qualifies as a vaccine. What they will not tell you in that narrative is the deeper that I've shared with you, that the RNA renders the original DNA useless. And I've read it to you several times. I've sent the link out several times of the 2010 paper. Loyalty is saying multiple messenger RNA vaccines, meaning it will take 2 or 3 messenger RNA phases to modify the genome to the standard they feel appropriate, ? Otherwise, they wouldn't use an attenuated version. The messenger RNA only needs to be introduced, Loyalty, only needs to be introduced once. It does not need to be introduced 2 or 3 times. The reason that they're talking about a second vaccination round or a third vaccination round is because they're not reaching every person on the planet. Okay? These are compressed, where they say there's a second vaccination and a third vaccination. The timelines of those are very close together. They're compressed. Why are they close together? Because it's Operation Warp Speed, meaning they have to get everyone vaccinated before God reveals the Antichrist, before God installs the Antichrist. Satan does not reveal the Antichrist. Satan does not install the Antichrist. God does that according to his plan. Why is the Antichrist installed? Because he is the mechanism of judgment. Judgment against those that turn their stiff-necked gaze away from God. Those who refuse the salvation of Jesus Christ, who refuse the sacrifice of Jesus Christ for their own souls. It is not Satan. Satan is the instrument of judgment in the hands of God. Therefore, the Antichrist and the images of the beast are put in place not by Satan, but by God. Okay? We have, I'm reading in the chat room, we have the seal of God. We have the seal of God. The counterfeit to that is the mark of the beast. Okay? That's why our names, our DNA is found in the Lamb's Book of Life. Because we refused the mark of the beast. Someone in chat room is saying, I'm having trouble finding the link between Palantir and D-Wave. Okay. And the SWS. Palantir's primary programs, if you go to their website, Look at their products tab. Those software programs are the software programs of the Purdue University white paper defined sentient world simulation. Look up SEAS, the acronym SEAS, SEAS. Okay? Palantir's link to D-Wave is that Palantir provides software for cloud-based access to D-Wave's physical quantum computers. Okay? Palantir was the first third-party developer for access to the D-Wave computers through the cloud. The connection to SWS of D-Wave is through Palantir's connection to SWS. Okay? Alrighty. Mucklecade is asking about why are they taking with a digital thermometer? Why are they taking the temperatures on the forehead when you can do it on the inside of the wrist? You could do it under the arms, axillary. Have you ever had a doctor or a nurse take your temperature by putting a glass thermometer under your arm? That's an axillary temperature. You can do that. It will give you just as accurate a reading as the forehead. To answer your question, Mucklecade, good question, but we've said this before, it is to get people used to having their forehead scanned. Remember, people will say, well, I wear gloves because it's cold. Or I wear gloves because I'm afraid of COVID-19. Well, if the mark is on the back of the right hand, then the gloves, let's say they're latex vinyl gloves, or nitrile gloves, or thermal gloves because your hands are cold, insulated gloves, then that is an encumbrance. It's inconvenient. Remember the whole thing about convenience as the solution, a convenient solution. They say, okay, well, if that's inconvenient, we'll just put the mark on your forehead. Then when you go to a concert, your forehead will be scanned by a scanner in the doorway. You want to go to a grocery store, the scanner in the doorway will scan your forehead. Okay? That's why they're taking the temperature with the digital thermometer of the forehead so that people will not think twice about saying, oh, I can take the mark of the beast on my forehead. It's just like a tattoo. People will want that to be prominently displayed. It's their pledge of allegiance to the Antichrist that they worship. So to put it on the forehead, it won't be visible because it's luciferase. It's near infrared, but it can be scanned on the forehead. So it's obvious. It's getting people accustomed to having their forehead scanned. Okay? Okay. Alrighty. I don't want to keep you guys past 2 hours this evening. I'm making a real effort to try to keep things concise and keep us on time. Okay? Very good, Josh. The quadrant table involving Palantir. The quadrant table, Aleister Crowley used a 4-quadrant table. That's a square with 4 squares inside it. Ramon Lull used the quadrant table. Okay? The quadrant table is used in divination. It is part of geomancy, the quadrant table. The business unit for D-Wave quantum computing is called quadrant. It is called quadrant because they use the data that comes in from the Internet of Things, all of the data of the world, including the data that comes from CERN, is processed using quantum computers through the quadrant business unit of D-Wave for the purpose of discovering the golden nuggets of data hidden within big data, the streams of data, which that data from a geomantic perspective, the data that is produced by all of us, the data that is streamed through the Internet of all things, is random number generation. The purpose of the 4 squares in the quadrant table is to take random dots, random data, seemingly random, and identify the hidden patterns in the data. And once you identify those hidden patterns, you're able to prognosticate and predict the future. I'll leave you with this. Through the sentient world simulation, through Palantir software, through D-Wave and other quantum computers, it is for the purpose of taking big data, identifying the patterns, and predicting the future. It is all about divination. It's all about predicting the future. The most valuable commodity on the planet. Prognostication. Okay? Josh, thanks for bringing that up. That's a great point to end on. Everyone, I want to say thank you and God bless you all. Thank you for joining with us this evening. And Lord willing, I won't bump my head anymore on beams. And Scotty won't be beaming me up. And we will be back together with you on Sunday. God bless you all, and good night.